All right, well, I'm not sure if anybody's watching this yet or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I am Chris Torrance, and this is the Assembly Lines Podcast, and this is part 2, where we go ahead and build the ReActiveMicro Apple II Plus kit. And this is a kit that I started last week, and I made some progress then. I got all the resistors put in. I did a little bit more work this week, as you can see, so I added in most of the capacitors, and then as well as some of the little dip sockets here. And you can't see that because I'm not holding it up. So can everybody, let's see, I only see Eric right now. Can everybody, such as Eric, hear the audio okay? Is that a yes? Okay, excellent, good, thanks. Hey Wyatt, how's it going? Wyatt, what time is it where you are? Just curious. Must be late, early, tomorrow, yesterday? I'm not sure. 12, oh wow, midnight, just after midnight. All right, Wyatt, well thanks for staying up. Hopefully this will be worth it. Let me switch actually to a different view so you can see the board itself there. So you should be able to see the board, and let's see, I was trying to do a live chat earlier. I'm not sure if I got that to work or not. Hold on one second and we will see if we can get that up and running. Let me copy that and go over here. I'm trying to get it so the chat is actually displayed in the window, and not sure. Okay, let's see. Pop out the chat. And how do to get the chat to show up in the window itself? Let's see, toggle timestamps. Okay, bear with me, hold on one second here. Chat, that's not that. I had everything working except I forgot how to pop out the chat. So let's see. Okay. So we want to capture the chat log. So live chat. Pop out the chat. Aha, okay. So let me see if I can get this to work. Okay. And we're going to go over to Chrome. Hold on, I know this is very exciting here. Let's see. Chat. Okay, so now if I take that link, and I might actually put all the instructions for how to do this somewhere, because I think it's definitely kind of tricky. All right, so I say okay. Look at that. Okay, cool. It looks like my 2 nieces are on here. Hello, Madeline. Hello, Molly. Hey, there's Mark Lemert. Okay, I think the chat is there. Does everybody see the chat in the lower left corner? Cool. All right. Great. Okay, excellent. All right, well let me just keep going here. So yeah, so last week we started the board and we got some of the soldering done, and we mostly, if you look here in this corner of the board, we did a whole bunch of resistors And then over the past week in the evenings, I added all of the capacitors in. And these are mostly just filtering capacitors. So if you're wondering what I'm actually building, let me bring up the ReActiveMicro website here. And here it is. Hold on. I want Chrome. And I don't need that. I'll bring this over here. Okay, so close that guy. So this is the, it's a little hard to see there with my picture in the way, isn't it? So this is from ReActiveMicro, and this is their clone of the Apple II Plus. And so this is a motherboard, and so you get everything that you need to assemble the kit. So you get the actual board itself, so that's the PCB here, which you can barely see now. You get all the components, so that's all of the resistors and capacitors. You get all of the little sockets and the chips, and I showed that last time. And let me bring that back to the front so I can show that. So that's, here's all the sockets and the chips. And so every single chip on the board goes into a socket, and that just makes it easy to, in case one of them is bad, you can easily replace it. And it just makes it a lot simpler to work on. And then once you're all done, you should have a fully working Apple II Plus minus the power supply and the keyboard. So actually, Henry over at ReActiveMicro, he also sells a power supply, and that's the website here. I wish I could get it so you could actually see more of the website on the screen, but I'd have to hide myself. So I'll just leave it there. I can put the links in the show notes. Actually, I'll just hold up the power supply and what they look like. So let's see. Sorry, I'm kind of discombobulated here. So this is the power supply kit that Henry sells on his website, and this is actually a drop-in replacement for the Apple II and II Plus, 2E, and also Apple III. And I believe, I'm not sure about the 2GS, but anyway, this kit is really good. And if you have a power supply on your old Apple II that is failing, or that you're just worried about that the magic smoke is going to come out, I'd recommend getting one of these kits. So this one here is a spare that I have, and so I'm going to be using this to power the board once I have it. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat right now in case I've missed some stuff. Hey, Jeremy. Let's see. Eric was already on. Eric was the first one on. Let's see. Jeremy says, "Where can we get replacement 2 Plus keyboards?" Eric, that's a great question. So as far as getting keyboards, unfortunately, your best bet is either to ask, say on the Apple II enthusiast Facebook group if somebody has one extra, or just go on eBay. And that's really all I can suggest. There's not anybody making, clone keyboards or anything like that. I suppose if you had a really old Apple II Plus that you wanted to cannibalize, but that would be kind of sad because why wouldn't you just put the board into it? But yeah, I don't know if anybody else has any suggestions. Oh, actually, Chris. Yeah, great point from Chris. He says basically you can get an adapter. So this is Chris Auger, who was on last time and helped me out with a lot of technical stuff about the board. You can actually buy a adapter that will allow you to plug in like a regular PS2 app or like a IBM PC keyboard, any sort of like USB or PS2 keyboard into your Apple II board. And I'm not sure. For a while, Charles Mangan was making those. Chris, do you know who is actually making those right now? Because I'm not sure who that actually is. So we'll see if he has an answer to that. Okay, I'm getting lost in all of my windows here, so I have too many of them going. All right, so let's get back to the board itself. So we are going to hide that and then go back to our chat. Okay, so let's see. Okay, ReActiveMicro. So if you just go on ReActiveMicro, boy, ReActiveMicro sells everything. So you should be able to get the adapter there to plug in a PS2 keyboard. Obviously, it's not as authentic as, a regular Apple keyboard, but much easier to find that type of keyboard. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just dive in. There's a few things I wanted to talk about first with this kit, and then we can just start actually doing some stuff. So, and yeah, Eric points out that you can also just make a adapter using an Arduino, and that's actually really easy to do as well. So let's see. Let's just talk about some nuts and bolts of the actual kit itself. Overall, it's really easy to assemble. Henry did a really nice job with the board. You can just go online and there's lots of pictures of the actual his board where all the components are located, so it's pretty easy to figure out, if you're confused. Obviously, the board itself is labeled with everything. So for example, all the capacitors are C1, C2, C3, etc. The only tricky thing with the board is that the numbers tend to be all over the place. So you'll have C25 up here, and C26 might be all the way down at the bottom left corner of the board. So that makes it a little confusing. There are a few gotchas to just watch out for. First of all, let's see if you can see this. The capacitors, they come on the sheets where the metal leads are just taped down. They're almost impossible to get out of there. It's not worth the effort. So what I did is I just clipped them at the top, and then that just makes the leads a little bit shorter, but it doesn't matter because you're going to cut them off anyway once you solder it. So that's no big deal. So just be aware of that. So that's why all these have the leads cut off. Let's see, what else? There are a couple other interesting components to think about. So let's see, when I was soldering the board, I'm trying to think of other stuff that was confusing. One thing to keep in mind, and we're actually going to solder a couple of the transistors in. So for the transistors, there's 3 wires for them, and I'll see if I can hold up one of them. We're going to need that capacitor in a minute. Put that there. So a transistor can be used just like a little electronic switch in some sense. And so they have, let's see, where's my camera here? So they have 3 leads like that. And they also have, and you probably won't be able to see this, but one side of it is flat. And you want to make sure when you're actually soldering it in, the board itself, for example, this one right here. So there's a transistor that goes there. It will show you which side the flat part is on. And I actually, when I was soldering last night, I actually soldered these 2 capacitors here in backwards, and because I just wasn't thinking. And then it was only once I got to the ones down here on the bottom that I suddenly realized, oh, I did it backwards. And so I had to desolder them and put them in. Luckily, it wasn't too hard to do, but if you can keep it in mind and not do that the first time, that will save you a lot of pain later on. So just be aware of that. And then Chris Auger also pointed out that Henry forgot a trace on the board itself. So up here in the upper right corner of the board, there is a video adapter where you can plug in, say if you have an 80 column card, that might plug in there, or if you want to use a different type of video out, there's pins that go in here, and there's a 12-volt line on that Henry actually forgot to hook up. And so I've got a picture here of what that should look like, and let me move this into the frame so you can actually see it. So this is actually the back of the board, so we're going to flip it over, and you won't be able to see it until I move that picture out of the way. And I haven't actually looked that closely at this myself, so I'm just sort of eyeballing it here. But basically, we're going to put in a capacitor, and we're going to use the extra lead of the capacitor to jump the wire from this pin here, and I'm hoping you can actually see my mouse. We're going to use that lead to jump over to the plus 12 volt for that external video adapter pin, since there's no lead actually hooked up to it. So why don't we go ahead and we can do that right now. So I'm going to put let's go back to the camera, and I'm going to go ahead and put this capacitor in, and just don't forget that most capacitors, or at least the ones here that we're using, are not direction dependent, so you can just put them in either way. I've been putting them in so that the writing is all facing the same direction, just for the heck of it, but that's not necessary. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to bend the leads over, and then this one here can just get soldered down. I wonder if I zoom in. Is that helpful? Maybe. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and we'll solder that one down, and then we'll take the other one and we will attach it to the lead. Let me just make sure I'm doing that correctly. Yes. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this piece of foam here. And so as far as supplies go, I'll zoom back out. I've got my soldering iron, and it's just a cheap kind of Weller 30-watt soldering iron. I've got some Weller tip activator here, which just cleans it off. I've got some lead-free solder, and that has flux in it, which helps to clean all the components and clean everything off before you solder it. And then I actually took Chris's advice last time, and I switched to a chisel tip on my soldering iron, if you can see that. All right, let's see. Let me just make. Oh, hey Patrick, good to see you. Let's see. ReActiveMicro, he says the super encoder for the Apple II and II Plus has a PS2 port. Okay, cool. Chris, always cut them anyway. You don't want glue in your solder connection. I'm not sure what that was referring to, but we'll wait and see. Let's see. Okay. Yes, Eric, I'm making flux capacitors. I just rewatched all of the Back to the Future movies a few weeks ago, so that's very appropriate. All right, let's go ahead and solder this lead here. And I'm totally paranoid that I'm going to solder the wrong one, but all right, I'm going to go ahead and put the little tip activator on. And in case you're wondering, I was actually using a fan the last few nights when I was soldering all these other components. I won't use a fan today just because it's too noisy. But I would strongly recommend, if you're doing any sort of soldering, get some sort of fan to suck it up. And I actually, the one I have is a Hako or Heiko smoke absorber, but you can get anything. You know, basically it sucks. It's not a fan that blows. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to solder this lead in there, and then for the other one, this is the one here. Let's just make sure we know what we're doing. So this pin right here. Okay. So this pin right here is the plus 12 volt line that isn't attached to anything. And so we're going to just bend the lead over. Actually, I think, you know what I want to do? And this is probably what Chris is about to just say. I probably want to actually put in the pins first, because otherwise that will be complicated. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can actually find, and I just spilled my water. Hold on, please. Let's see. Okay, we're not going to worry about that. So I need the pins for this. Okay, there's a capacitor. Audio and video jack. I don't actually see a spare set of pins. It's not in there, is it? Chris, if you're still online, did you get a little 4-pin set for that video adapter, or did you just have to scrounge through your own parts? Just curious, because I don't see one in the bag of extra little parts here. I see the video jack, I see the audio jack, there's the power connector, there's the other cassette port, and then I see two little sets of pins there, but that's just for the speaker and for the other video connector. Yeah, there is no 4-pin for the... Huh. That's interesting. I don't see it. All right, I'm gonna go get one. Talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be back in 20 seconds. Okay, was that 20 seconds? All right, so I've got some little headers here. So here's some header pins. I can't remember what these came in. So we need a 4-pin. We need 4 pins. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut them off. Actually, these should just snap off. 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay, so Chris said his came inside the bag with the tape jacks. Yeah, mine did not have one. Yes, Chris says he also does not supply a 4-pin for the programming port at B1. Okay, so that's good to know. Right. Well, I've got plenty. So we're going to go ahead and we'll put this in, and just like, hopefully, just like that. You can see that. Okay. And then the tricky part with doing all this is making sure that it doesn't fall out when you're turning it over. I'm going to zoom back out so it's a little, I don't know if that's actually better. I have a nasty light on there, but I don't think I can do anything about it. I'm just going to put this piece of foam underneath here to keep it from moving around too much. So the trick with doing these little pin things is to try and get them so they stand up straight and aren't. And the 2-pin, which is that other external video pin, but I just didn't get the 4-pin. Okay, so let's go ahead, solder that. Okay. And this one, I wonder if I can just do it at the same time. We'll just try it. Okay. All right, let me zoom in. It's hard to get it to show up in the camera. All right, so you can see it looks a little messy just because of all the flux all over the board because I haven't washed it off. But there's the 4-pin connector, and I've taken that lead from that capacitor at the C14, and I've just soldered that to that 12-volt line there. And then we're just going to go ahead and clip off those extra wires. I want this down a little bit. Is that better? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So that should hopefully take care of that. So when you're all done soldering, and I might do this actually after today, because at this point I'll have all the capacitors done. It's always good to wash the board to get off all the flux from the solder, and I typically use like 91% isopropyl alcohol. You can use like distilled water, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. Alcohol is better just because it evaporates so quickly and hopefully doesn't leave much of a residue. But just to wash away all the flux, it might not do any harm, but at the same time, from what I've heard, it can be a little bit acidic maybe, and could potentially, damage the board over time. So, cool. Hey, not sure who Silence is, but yes, so this is the Apple II Plus clone board, or the RFI clone Apple II board from ReActiveMicro, and comes with the board and all the components that you need. And I've got links in the show notes for where you can actually go and look at the kit or buy the kit. It's I think it's about $175 for just the bare bones kit, maybe $225 if you want it assembled or something like that. It's actually kind of fun to put together yourself, as long as you don't mind soldering. And even if you're not very good at soldering, by the end of it, you probably will be. There's like over 2,000 solder points. But, that sounds like a lot, but, it's actually, I don't know, it's kind of relaxing to just sit there and you can see like all these, the sockets that I did over the last few nights. And you just put them in and you just start, soldering away in the back, and you just, I don't know, it's kind of fun. You can put on some music, I suppose, and do it. So let's keep going. Let's see, what else? I had a couple other things I was going to talk about with the board. So one thing that might be a little puzzling, there is a component here labeled C3, and it's also called color trim. If I can get it into the picture right there. So this, I'm not even 100% sure why they made this like a variable component back in the day, but basically you could I assume adjust the color trim in case your TV maybe was off. But at least in most later models, that color trim pot was actually sealed into position or soldered into position, and so in Henry's kit, he doesn't even give you that little pot there. He just gives you a capacitor to put across it, and so we'll go ahead and we'll do that now. I just wanted to talk about it, and this is a 47 picofarad capacitor, and so it's just in a bag, and it's labeled, at least in my case, it was labeled C2 through 3 and C16. So that threw me off a little bit because I looked at C3 and that definitely did not look like a capacitor. But that's exactly what that is. And as long as you go from the center hole here to any of the other two holes, then you're set. So these two, I think they're on the same thing. So it doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead. That's really weird. Cool. So yeah, Eric, he says testing the board must be fun. I think this is kind of what maybe it was Chris said last time, that, since this is like TTL components and they're huge, there's actually, knock on wood, there's not a lot that can go horribly wrong unless you're like me and soldering your transistors backwards. What I actually did take the multimeter, and last night I took so here's where the power connector goes, and I just used the continuity tester to make sure that nothing, at least at this point, was shorted out. So I just tested to make sure like the plus 5 volt wasn't shorted to ground, etc. And then I also went around the board at a few spots and just tested to make sure that, say, the plus 5 volt was indeed hooked up to the plus 5 volt somewhere else. Once you get more and more components on the board, it becomes a little bit dicier to test it. Not dicier in terms of danger, but once things start to get connected together, you can start, you can get some false readings sometimes. And so at some point, like especially once you get the chips in there, you'd have to switch to like an oscilloscope and, actually have power on it or something like that to see if there was any sort of problems. Just because, things are connected together with capacitors, which can goof up your readings. And I'm not an electrical engineer, by the way, so hopefully my brother-in-law Steven isn't necessarily watching this, but chances are I'll be saying things that aren't quite correct. But I know enough to, I guess, be dangerous. So let's go ahead and we'll put this capacitor in, and we will solder that in place. And this is going to be a real pain to actually solder that guy in there. And let's go, just to double check, I'm going to go over to Henry's website, and we'll look. He has a really, really good high-res picture of the board. And so you can see, hopefully, if that comes in to the picture, there's the capacitor, and it's just going across from the middle one to the upper one. So we'll just go ahead and do it just like that. It doesn't matter which of these two. I don't think you do it across. So let's turn that guy over, and hopefully it won't fall out. All right, so we'll solder these in. And again, this is just a Weller soldering station, which is also nothing fancy. In fact, here, I'll swing the camera around if I can do that without making everybody totally seasick. So there's a soldering station there. This is, pretty cheap. At least, it does have adjustment for the temperature, so that's kind of nice. I usually leave it around somewhere between 4 and 5. I've never used, I don't know, when I would ever need to use any of the other settings or something like that. But, it gets the job done. Obviously, there's a lot fancier soldering irons. There's ones that are, way more expensive. Soldering stations and things like that. But I don't know. For the amount that I do, this is probably fine. Okay, so let's see if we can zoom in. Get that in the picture. It's in there. All right, so let's go ahead. And these are some big gaping holes here, so okay, that actually filled in fairly nicely. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Those are some huge holes, so you need a lot of solder for those points. All right, let's see what else is going on. Hey, Silence, you mentioned that was your the Apple II was your first computer. What happened to it? Do you still have it? Because they keep working. I still have my original Apple II that my family and I got back when I was in middle school, and it's still going strong. I remember, I think when I was after about a year after we got it, something about the motherboard went bad, and we actually ended up having to get a new motherboard for it. But luckily, it was still under warranty, so we didn't have to pay for it. And then trying to remember, some of the keys on it have gotten stuck over the years, and so I've had to fix some of the keys up. But other than that, it's been 1981, so it's still going strong after all those years. Let's see, Herb. Let's see, what is he saying? He's okay. So I tend to dial the temperature down if I'm not going to be soldering for a bit when I'm. That's a good point. That's actually Herb. Yeah, I usually just turn the soldering iron off if I'm not going to use it, but a lot of times I have to admit I forget, and then I just leave it on for an hour while I'm still working on something else, and then of course the poor soldering tip is all oxidized and everything, so that's not good. So that's a good idea to just turn the temperature down. And then Chris is also talking about testing, so checking the DC rails for shorts. Yeah, and so on these boards, where's a good example? Actually, right near the power connector, maybe. So you can see on. Let's see. Can I get a good angle here? These boards have these rails that go along that contain that carry either the ground, so it's called the ground plane or the ground, or else the plus 5 volt line, etc. So for example, on this connector here, let me get my cheat sheet here. These are the ground lines here, and so you can see this kind of faint lighter outline here. That actually is carrying the ground all the way around the board, and you can see it goes all the way around the outside. And then if you go to the front of the board, this is the plus 5 volt line here, and so you can see that actually that plus 5 volt is embedded in the PCB and runs all the way along, and you can actually trace where it goes to every single pin. And so Chris is just saying you can actually just follow those along the sides of the boards and test for shorts that way to make sure that everything looks good. Cool. Okay. Hey, Brian. Good to hear from you. Let's see. He says, I'm fixing my Apple II Plus. It's frozen. I changed all the RAM. I don't know. What do you mean by frozen? Do you turn it on? Do you hear a beep? That's the number one thing. If you hear a beep, that's a really good sign. If you don't hear a beep, that's not so good. Is there garbage on the screen? I don't know. Tell us more. All right, let's go ahead and we'll put in the transistors. So we have 2 more transistors to put in. These are at Q5 and Q6. And these are both really interesting, which is why I sort of left them so we could kind of talk about them. So when the Apple II first came out, 1977, so what's now known as the revision 0, it was a little bit more limited in that it only had 4 colors, so the color circuitry hadn't quite been finalized yet, and it also didn't have a auto start to it. So when you turned it on, it would just sort of be frozen, and you'd actually have to hit reset to get it to actually jump start or start the 6502 chip. And so in around the next revision, they actually added a whole set of circuitry down here in the lower right of the board. So this is the power on circuitry. So none of these components here were really on the board when it first came out. And then they added a 555 timer. And then they also added this transistor here. And all these components here are designed to start the computer when it first turns on. So that's what that is. And then the other transistor here at Q6, and sorry, it's kind of hard to, I don't know what angle to do these at. So when the Apple II first came out, all of the text actually went through the same graphic circuitry as color graphics, and so the text all had fringes around it, strange color fringes around all of the text because it wasn't being suppressed. And so then in the next revisions, they added so for the first revision, so Rev 1, they added a transistor here, which would basically shunt the color signal off or turn it off when you were in text mode. And so then text wouldn't have the color fringes around it, but then when you went to graphics mode, it would turn the color back on. That worked okay, but it still had a few problems where like you'd still get some bleed through. And so they actually added a whole nother chip down at A14, I believe. Yeah, this one right here. So this LSO2. So they added this chip then later on. I think it was, according to my notes, it was around revision 7. And that actually solved the problem. So when you're in text mode, you don't see any color fringing at all. So it's just kind of interesting that, you know, even though the software for all these boards is you know, more or less compatible with, you know, very tiny differences, there actually are some subtle differences in hardware. You know, but that is one thing that Apple did, I would say, fairly well with the Apple II series, at least, is they preserved backwards compatibility, and they kind of went to great lengths to make sure that the Apple IIe, you know, was compatible with the II Plus and the Apple II. Same thing for the Apple IIc and even the Apple II GS. You know, for the 2GS, you could maybe argue that they went a little too, well, I don't know if they did it to maintain backwards compatibility, but, you know, they sort of maybe crippled it, whereas it could have had even better graphics and sound, but they didn't. I don't think they wanted it competing with the Macintosh by that point, so they sort of crippled the 2GS a little bit. Still an awesome machine, but, you know, could have had even better graphics and sound capabilities than it actually did. Okay, so we've got that transistor in Q6, and then you can see that I've made sure to put the flat part of the transistor the same direction as the flat part on the PCB, so don't be like me and goof it up. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing for Q5. Let's see. No beep. Okay, so that's what Brian says. And garbage on the screen. So yeah, and Chris is pointing out that's probably actually not a RAM problem, because, you know, you don't need much RAM at all to start up the Apple II. You know, pretty much as long as you have one working RAM chip, it'll be okay. So the RAM is probably fine. Let's see. So here, Silence is just saying, my first Apple II was a 2 Plus clone built by my father. Very cool. We used it outside of a case. Okay. Still have a fully operational 2E with a lot of cards. It has been years since I used it, though. Silence, you must get your Apple IIe back out. There's amazing things that you can do now. Like, you know, a lot of the, actually I brought down a whole bunch of my, I have a whole collection of kind of floppy disk cards. Let's see, 1, 2, I thought I had a third one. Yeah, here we go. So here, I'll hold this up to this. This is just one example. There's, you know, probably 6 or 7 of these different types of models out there. And so this is called the SD Disk 2. I think this is Ian Kim in Korea. And it's basically a card that goes into your Apple II Plus 2E, and you can put all of your disk images on an SD, you know, just a standard SD card, and then it'll just read them off there, and there's usually a way to select the programs. Here's another one which is essentially the same thing. So this is from Kaboo in Hong Kong, and this is, if I can get the card out. So this one here, same deal. This one's kind of neat because it actually just plugs right into a normal disk 2 drive controller card, and then it has a little selector buttons on it. You can tell this is 3D printed, but and then you can actually select which disk image you want to boot. So that's a neat one. And then the other one that I've got here, So this is the SD floppy 2. So this is from Plamen in Europe. And so this one, actually, I had the case custom made, so it doesn't come with this case, but I just had it custom made to look like a disk 2 drive. And again, this is just it's just an SD card, and this just plugs into just a normal disk 2 adapter. And then there's other ones that, so for example, the one that I'm actually selling on my website, the Booty drive, so that's primarily designed to be like a replacement hard drive for your Apple II, and that uses a USB stick. And so you put the disk images on your USB stick, and then when it boots up, you can just hit like the numbers 1 through 6 or whatever to decide which disk image you want to boot up when you start it. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. So even if you don't have like a working floppy disk, or you don't have a way to get floppy disks, you can get these solutions now that just make it super convenient to keep using your Apple II. All right, let's go ahead and solder these in before I just keep babbling here. Patrick, let's see. Hey, Patrick. Speaking of neat things, can you still buy that HDMI card? So the VidHD, yes. I think so. Hold on. So what Patrick is talking about, this is the VidHD card, and I've got 2 different models of it. This is kind of I think this is the prototype. I can't remember now which is which, but one of these is a prototype, and the other one was the final working model. Let's see, revision 0.4 and 1.3. So this must be the latest incarnation. So basically, again, this plugs into your Apple II, but it has HDMI out. So you can plug this into any 1080p. I think it has to be 1080p or greater HDMI monitor. And so it's by John Brooks of Blue Shift is the name of his company. And this card it's really interesting the way it works. It's not taking the actual video signal from the Apple II and converting it. It's actually looking at the memory itself inside the Apple II, and every time 30 times a second or 60 times a second, whatever, it's reading the memory, and then it is processing it, the memory itself on board, and then actually converting that to HDMI. So it's kind of a straight from the Apple II memory directly to HDMI. And so the signal, I have a video about it. Now I can put a link in the show notes to it, but the signal is just amazing, and you can do super cool things like you can have 80 column text, 132 column text, all sorts of weird kind of different graphics modes that you can change the color of the graphics and things like that, because essentially it can just simulate whatever it wants to, basically, since it's doing it all in its own firmware. So I think it's still available. Maybe somebody can go and check that. Wyatt says you need to buy it from John Brooks, but I don't know. Okay, so here, Wyatt put the email in the show notes. So just look for that email, send an email to John Brooks, and you can buy it. It's a little expensive. I can't remember what he was charging. I want to say somewhere 130, 150 bucks. But I went crazy trying to buy. I shouldn't say that, but I bought a lot of like adapter cards to try and make the video better from my Apple II, for like 20 bucks each, just because I was being cheap, and none of them worked until pretty much the VidHD. So it's it's worth the money. All right, let's go ahead and solder these in. So let's see. I've just been talking, and how many? I think I've soldered like 3 things. So it's kind of sad. Okay. All right. Everybody see that okay? little hard to see, isn't it? I haven't quite mastered how to get the focus right. The only thing I've noticed with this, maybe the internet hive mind can tell me, this tip that I've got on here, if I can get it to focus on it, it feels almost too wide, and so I sometimes have trouble kind of controlling where I'm actually putting the solder. And so I'm just wondering, like, is that, it's a chisel tip, but is it too much of a chisel tip? Like, should I get something that's, a little bit narrower, some sort of in between? I don't know. All right, so that's the two transistors there at Q5 and Q6. And we'll go ahead and clip the leads off. And so one other thing I was just going to mention, so speaking of what Silence was saying about having an operational 2E, there's also a lot of new games coming out for the Apple II line. And so if you have, like last week I talked about Nox Archaist. Here's the mug. So that's a brand new computer role-playing game, kind of like Ultima, and that's actually coming out. There was a Kickstarter, and so that'll be coming out this year. And then Michael Packard, who's active on the Facebook group, he's just been churning out the games. Most they're arcade games, but he's also going to come out with one that's more of what's the name of the trader? Now I'm blanking on the name. His is going to be called like Galactic Trader or something like that, but it's Taipan. Is that right? So there's role-playing games, action games, arcade games, simulations. And they're all brand new, brand new games. So there's a lot of fun to still be had. Okay, so that's that. And let's see, what else do we have? I don't really want to put in any of these components, the big components yet, because they're too tall. So if you put in the really tall components, then you'll have trouble doing things like the sockets because they're so much shorter. All right, here's an empty bag. So that's another bag. I guess we could just start doing some sockets. I don't want to put in the crystal yet either. So here's the crystal. So this actually controls the frequency of everything in the computer, and it's a single crystal. It's 14 point something megahertz. Can I read it? 14, I can't quite read it. 14.31818. So if you remember, so the Apple II runs at 1 megahertz, but things like the video signal needs to have higher frequencies, typically like I think one of them is like 7 megahertz, and there's something else that's 3 megahertz. And so basically this, you use the 14 megahertz crystal, which goes in the board, and then down here it gets split up into a whole bunch of different signals, each with its own frequency. So for example, like it's split in half, and then the 7 megahertz goes to the video, and it gets split down, into a 1 megahertz signal, which goes into the 6502 chip. And then the rest of the board can use it, and then that clock signal also goes to all of the sockets too. So if you have a peripheral card, that signal is available on those sockets as well. Chris says yes, that's a large chip. Yeah, I know. I don't have another one. I should just order. Hey, Michael, I am not done yet. No, I'm working on it, but you can see there's still a lot to go. So let's just keep going. 14.31818. Yes. Good. 3 people chimed in. Thank you. All right. So we're just going to put in the sockets for the chips. And one thing to keep in mind with these, you always want to double check the notch, that the notch on the socket itself matches the notch on the board. So each one of these sockets, let me zoom in here. So So you can see, for example, this 195 here. This has a little notch, okay, which indicates the orientation of the chip, and then it also has a little dot here which indicates pin number 1. And obviously, you don't want to put a chip in backwards, and so with the sockets, they will also have a little notch on them, and so you just want to line up that notch with the board, and you should like triple check these before you do it, because you definitely don't want to screw them up. And then one other thing to keep in mind, there's 16 pin, there's 14 pin, so they all have different numbers of pins, and so you want to make sure. Obviously, you won't be able to put a socket with too many into into it, but you could easily accidentally put in a socket with too few pins into one where there should be more, and then of course you'll be missing some pins. Why is this not actually going in? Did I bend it? No, unfortunately, I've filled. You see that right there? That hole has gotten. I don't know if you can tell this. That hole has gotten filled in with solder for some reason. I wonder if I dropped something on the board there. It's weird. All right, so we're just going to skip that one for now, and I will have to desolder it. So that one's in there. The notch is correct. The white dot is pin 1. Let's see. Easier to download than is. Wait, Patrick, why do you feel left? Oh, go ahead, Pat. You can say the frequency too if you want. If that's what you're talking about. So, oh yes, he actually did. That's a good point. So there are. So a few of the sockets have special white sockets. That was kind of confusing to say it that way. Basically, the key anything where the user, the owner is expected to plug something in, so something external gets plugged in, they have special white sockets, and this was true of the original board too. So, for example, that's the keyboard. So anything that a ribbon cable is going to plug into. So the keyboard has one. The first RAM chip usually also gets a white socket. Zoom back out. And that's because if you have a language card, then you'll typically take that chip out, and the language card will plug into there instead. So it's sort of a jumper to the language card. And then finally, the game port, the joystick adapter here, also has a white socket. So we'll go ahead and we'll put in the keyboard one as well right now. And okay, so this one is only a 14 pin. So we'll have to find. Ow, just stabbed my finger right through it. And then we need another 14 pin. Okay, those all look good. And I'm going to take this and just flip it over and hold it like that, so that the chips don't fall out, and that usually seems to work pretty well. Okay. Yes, so that ROM SPCL, that's the character generator. That's correct, Eric. And I've got that socket somewhere else too. Let's see. And then Herb points out that on more modern PCB boards, actually even on this one, you can see. Is that right? Is that pin 1 on the back of the board? Pin, yeah. So on the back of the this board, the pin 1 is also indicated by a little square solder pad. So that actually is the same. And let's see. Yeah, so Silence is asking about a keyboard. So you can either go on eBay or ask around to get an original Apple II keyboard. Obviously, those are kind of a little harder to get. or you can actually buy an adapter that will allow you to plug like a PS2 keyboard into that same socket. And you can get those adapters off of ReActiveMicro's website, or you can just make your own. They're actually super simple to make with just like an Arduino. So let's go ahead and we'll solder these in. And I guess what I'd like to do with, I think I need to get a new brass sponge or something. With sockets, I typically tack down like opposite corners. So I'll tack down one pin and then the opposite pin in the opposite corner just to hold the chip in. And then I don't have to worry about it getting skewed as I'm soldering. And then, so we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And so let's see, I'm stabbing myself here. So I'm going to solder that one. And then I'm going to go over and solder that one. And you probably can't see what I'm doing because my hands are in the way. Okay. Kind of confused myself. I'm off a row. Okay, there we go. That one, that one, that one. Great. All right, sorry I'm not talking very much. And of course the smoke is coming right towards me. Oops, I just filled in another hole. Okay, so let's see. That one's good. That one's the one we skipped. That one's good, good, good. Okay, it looks like I got them all fastened down. And I'm just going to double check and make sure that all of the notches are the same way, just because I'm sort of paranoid, and make sure that they're all flush. Okay, those look good. All right, now we can go back and we can actually finish soldering all the rest of them. Let me see. Let's see. There's talk of new keyboards, but nothing yet. So that's what Patrick says. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, and then Eric's talking about making your own with an Arduino. So it's definitely possible. I actually, on my Apple IIe upstairs, I have a adapter that goes from the Apple IIe to USB. And so you can actually, I have it so I can plug my Apple IIe, it goes the other way. I can plug my Apple IIe into my Mac upstairs and use the Apple IIe's keyboard to type in the Mac. So that's sometimes kind of fun. Just if you want a clicky keyboard and you still want to make use of. So that's yet another use for your, although not a great use, I guess, but it's another use for your Apple IIe. All right, so let's keep going with these here. Yeah, this is where this fat tip is kind of a liability. So I'm just going along and soldering all these, not really paying attention to the chat and what's going on. Hey, let's see. Has everybody signed up for Kansas Fest? If you haven't signed up for Kansas Fest, you should definitely do that. Just go to kansasfest.org. It's virtual this year, so normally it's held in Kansas City, and there's 5 days of Apple II and other retro computer goodness. This year it's going all virtual, and so it's going to be July 24th and 25th, I believe. And there's nothing in those. Yeah, we have a great set of speakers lined up already. I think we've got about 20 or 25 different sessions that are going to be happening. during the day, and it's everything from, remakes of games like Myst. Somebody, ported Myst to the Apple IIe. There's going to be one session on assembly language for beginners, so that should be cool. I'm going to do a presentation on Nux Archaeist along with Mark Lemmert, who's the creator, and so we'll be demoing that. Hold on one second. Let me concentrate here so I don't miss any. Okay, that actually, nope, I missed a whole row. And then there'll be a few things in the evening as well. So most of it's during the daytime, but we tried to make it start a little bit later and end a little bit earlier because, since it's virtual now, there's people all over the country, actually all over the world, who are signed up for it. And so I think sessions are going to start at like 9:30 Central Time. So that's like 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. And so then in Europe, that would be like, late afternoon. And then Australia and Asia, I guess, would maybe be probably more towards the middle of the night. But hopefully they'll be able to, catch some sessions. So let's see. Hey, Javier, good to see you. Yeah, I do have a fan. But it's incredibly loud, and so I didn't want to turn it on. I probably won't do too much more soldering. In fact, I'm actually coming up on an hour here, so I might wind up soon. But yeah, normally when I solder, I have a fan going to suck in the all the fumes so that I don't kill myself, at least not too quickly. So yeah, sign up for Kansas Fest if you haven't already. So the registration is $20, and then with that, you get a commemorative pin. So this will be a special virtual Kansas Fest pin. The pin itself is actually real, not virtual. I have 400 envelopes in my basement waiting to be sent out to people. I think registration right now is up to about 300. I'm also going to include a bunch of other stuff in there. So some of the usual vendors at Kansas Fest have given me postcards and stickers. And so I'll be including those, so you'll get your own little Kansas Fest care package for $20 anywhere in the world. And then that gives you access to all of the sessions, as well as a link to a t-shirt, which you can purchase. And that's actually on Javier's store. So if you register, then you get a link to that. So DE asks, wouldn't machine pin sockets be better? Yes and no. So yes, machine pin sockets, in case you don't know, those are the ones that they're actually round, and so they're a lot tighter, I guess, than these kind of older kind of dip switch sockets like this. I have some machine pin sockets, but they're upstairs. I think if you're just putting the chips in and you're just going to leave them in there, I don't think it makes much difference. These machines actually really don't heat up that much, and so there's not a lot of thermal expansion and contraction. There's some. So the chips really don't, kind of work themselves out that quickly. Every now and then I'll have to push down the chips on my Apple II Plus or something like that, but, once every 10 years. So, it's, I don't know. I think it can be, if you wanted to use machine pin sockets, you could, but I don't think it's really necessary. So Eric asks, can we do a virtual solder fest? Yes. I think Friday night there is like we've planned a 3-hour session that's going to be for like hardware hack fest or a hardware fest and solder fest, and then if people want to play games, they can do that. So every year we have a few people who go off and play board games, or there's another group that plays Dungeons and Dragons, and so we're going to be having virtual rooms for all those things. And so I think that'll be on Friday night, and then late Friday night, we're going to have a hookup with WASFest in Australia. So WASFest is an Australian Apple II festival that's going on. It usually happens at the same time, and so we'll have a video sync up with them. They're actually going to meet in person, I think, so they got the go-ahead to do that. So that'll be fun. And then, yeah, I'm trying to think of other, we'll have, let's see, we're going to give out some awards, the usual Apple II Forever Awards. We will have probably a place for vendors to maybe show off some stuff. So take 5 minutes or something like that. So it should be a lot of fun. And, hopefully we'll get some, I know we already have some good talks. And there's actually quite a few people signed up. There's some fairly well-known people in the community who have also registered. So, look for them to make an appearance. We haven't really lined anybody up necessarily to speak like a keynote. We were going to have Robert Woodhead, who was the creator of Wizardry. He was supposed to be the keynote speaker. And he's actually still going to attend virtually, but we decided to push his keynote till 2021, just so people can meet him in person. I think that'd be kind of more fun. Oh, yes, my shirt. Sorry, if you, little self-promotion here. I have a t-shirt store. So if you like the t-shirt, in fact, here, I'll switch to, I didn't really make use. I said I'm using OBS here, which is the software for streaming. There we go. So that should be just me. So yeah, I have probably about 10 different t-shirt designs on there. I also have a couple Apple II boards. So I have the Booty board, which is a hard drive emulator board, and then the Saturn memory card board, and those are both from David Mutimer in Australia. I don't have any of those in stock right now. I'm waiting to get more shipped from Australia. It's just things are really slow these days. But hopefully within the next month or so, I'll have more of those boards. And then just one more shameless plug. So I also have copies of Assembly Lines, which is the book. This is the complete edition. So this was the Roger Wagner was the author of the Soft Talk articles back in the day, and they came out with volume 1, which had all of his first part of his articles, and then he and I edited it a few years ago to come out with all the rest of the Soft Talk articles in one big book, which has all of them. I'm actually I just sent away to the publisher for a spiral bound or coil bound edition of this, and so I'm going to have that up there in the store as well. It'll probably be about a month before that gets up, because several people requested a coil bound version, because then it lays flat and you don't have to worry about breaking the spine to read it. So if you want to learn assembly language for the 6502, it's not just for the Apple. Obviously that book is focused on the Apple, but the 6502 was used in a lot of personal computers, and pretty much if you've written it for one, you can port it over to another one. Just by changing a few of the the commands for graphics and stuff. But that book is an excellent introduction to machine language, assembly language on the 6502. Starts basically for the beginner. So yeah, and then I forgot to mention. So the Kansas Fest T-shirts are actually from Javier Rivera's T-shirt store. Javier, throw a link into the show notes if you have a chance. Otherwise, I'll put it into into the chat, and I'll put it in the show notes. He also has a T-shirt store, and he has some super cool T-shirts. I have a Wizardry one from him, and he has a lot of things, Beagle Brothers T-shirts. So definitely check out Javier's T-shirt store as well. And then I think Joe Strohsnyder was on here a little bit earlier. Joe's Computer Museum. He also has a T-shirt store, and and then both of them have YouTube channels as well, where they do all sorts of cool retro things. Joe definitely does a lot more other than the Apple II. Mine's primarily Apple II, but he dabbles in lots of things, including the Commodore, and he's actually building his own kind of 6502 based computer, and he's working on I think it's 6502, and he's doing all the video. He basically built the entire composite video circuitry himself a few episodes ago. So I think I'll wrap it up now. That's about a little over an hour. And I'll go ahead and I'll upload this to YouTube, and then I'll add some stuff to the show notes. So maybe over the next week, I'll try and put in a bunch more sockets using the fan this time so I don't poison myself. And then maybe we'll have one more episode or two, depending, if you guys like this, enjoyed it. Maybe one where we'll actually try and test it out and, put in all the chips and see what happens when we turn it on. So anybody else have any more comments or thoughts or anything before I sign off? Hopefully this was fun and enjoyable. And maybe I'll try and get a new soldering iron tip as well so I don't make such a mess of the board when I'm doing it. If you have any questions about the kit or suggestions, once the video is posted on YouTube, feel free to put them in the comments. Or just go on the Apple II Facebook group if you're on Facebook, and there's plenty of people there to help you out. So, all right, thanks again, you guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.